Hey folks, welcome. I wasn't planning on jumping in with any more deck heavy tags just yet, but I am preparing to move. It is nice to get some content out, and this one in particular popped up this morning and very much tickled my fancy. It got brought to my attention because Robyn actually tagged myself, Logan and Julie in it, as well as Rumour, because of various videos that we've participated in. And similarly to the Twilight one that Julie, Logan and I did, Robyn was inspired by Beetlejuice, which is a movie that I freaking love, to take the quotes from it and create them into tags, prompts, sorry. I really love that vibe, obviously. I think it's a good time. And also, before decks get packed away and stuff, I thought it might be fun to do this one in particular because a lot of these decks that I have chosen for the prompts have that kind of Halloween-y, ghoulish, darker season vibe going on. I feel like they are going to be enjoyable ones as people get into especially the October season and start engaging with their decks like that. I obviously have my seasonal deck edit, but not all of these will be in that. And then my Halloween specific video is actually going up on Patreon. So this is just kind of a little something for those who are hanging out on my tarot channel because, yeah, I don't know how much I'm going to be around in October. So thank you to Robyn for this tag. I'm very excited. I will probably be a little bit quicker than usual. We've got 7 prompts. I have the 7 decks here. And I've gone for a mixture of tarot and oracle because I really wanted to hit the ones that really complemented this. Let's dive in to number 1. So the first one is It's Showtime, and that is a deck that feels cinematic either in the way that it's depicted itself or that it's actually representative of a movie or it reminds you of one. And of course the Robert M. Place Vampire Tarot, which is unfortunately very shiny, so sorry about the gloss reflection. We're working with what we've got. This of course gives me vampire movies, especially of old. My absolute favourite of all time being Bram Stoker's, although we don't see a very Gary Oldman depiction in here, of course, and that would be freaking wonderful. But it does give that, especially what now I suppose would be considered more cliche or cheesy vampire movies, and really the only reason being is because special effects and stuff have come on leaps and bounds since then. So now when people watch them, they're like, this isn't scary, this isn't edgy, but it was. It was a great time. I freaking love just, yeah, some of those classics. We have in here characters like Mina, Van Helsing, Jonathan, who else? We've also got other vampires, so Nosferatu is in here. I feel like it's a really great, albeit on the nose, deck choice for this. And because I wanted to weave in the sort of the essence of It's Showtime, I feel like this deck has that going for it. It is oversized, it is shiny, it has really an interesting but eye-catching colour choice. It has that kind of Beetlejuice purple. It has the spiky edges, it's kind of over the top, it's oversized, and also it's a little bit special because very unfortunately it is out of print and hard to get a hold of for a reasonable price. It has that almost, I know this is the Magician card as well, but that magical, fantastical layering in here with the vamps as well. It's just an overall really good time if you are a bit of a vampire nerd and fanatic like myself. And whilst I definitely don't retain the most vampire knowledge of anyone, I have really enjoyed these movies and books. Yeah, this deck just, it exudes It's Showtime to me and definitely takes me to that space of my favourite vampire movies. Prompt 2 is I am the ghost with the most, and this is a ghoulish deck. and it's kind of an interesting play, this one. So it's Oracle of Black Enchantment, I believe is the name, and I was very kindly gifted by my dear friend Kelly Bear the Samhain Edition as well. So it's this really rich orange colour, which is just giving pumpkin spice. And the reason that I picked this one for a ghoulish deck is because one of the things Patrick Valenza does really well, in my opinion, and is very apparent in this deck, is it's kind of twisted and peculiar, yet playful. It's a really interesting vibe of being inspired by some of those witchy woodcuts that actually were really brutal and confronting. And yet you've got all of this absurd and just, yeah, bizarre scenes being played out in each of these cards. And the fun part is that there are no keywords, and so you're really invited to immerse yourself in the story and sort of uncover what's going on, unless you want to use the guidebook, of course. And that feels kind of ghoulish to me. It's like not necessarily going to give it up straight away. You know, it's going to pop in and out and appear in funny ways and really sort of just take you by surprise a little bit. I think that that's my early experience. I haven't used this one a lot yet, so I'm very excited to get it out for the season, and it is probably one that I will try and keep available even when I'm packing everything else up, so that I can get to know these quirky individuals. And there's just so many ghoulish happenings in this as well. I mean, look at them. Look at these glorious, fantastic witches. The creatures in here couldn't be stranger if they tried. It's just something that I feel like the creator does really, really well throughout their decks. But each one, for me, that I've owned or do own, definitely has just a little bit of a different twist to it. And I feel like if anything was going to be the ghost with the most, it would be this one, because there's a little bit more complexities to it. There is a lot going on, and it really is asking a little more of us, but in a fun way. That's sort of my experience with it so far anyway. Next up, we have I myself am strange and unusual, which is a deck that is weird but lovable. And the Trionfi Della Luna Paradoxical is all of that and more. It is strange and it is lovable. It's definitely strange as well in the fact that it's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek than the previous one. I have worked with this one a lot. It is absolutely one of my faves. So, of course, it being lovable was kind of a given. But I have used this one in client readings as well. And I think that it's been very cheeky, and it's also been very literal sometimes in the depictions that come up, which you may be looking at these and asking how that's possible. But I assure you, it really has, and it's just so bizarre. It has that kind of absurd Punch and Judy jester kind of vibe going on with it. In my copy, I got to pick out of an absolute plethora of devil cards, as well as a few others. So you can see here I've got the lightning instead of the more traditional tower card. And I feel like even that, being able to pick my kind of strange and make it my own, that's something that was a really fun bonding experience with this. It has a little bit of that sort of toilet humour as well. I love, is it the Three of Cups? I think it was on the box where someone's trumpeting, so you can see it coming out of their behind. It's just hilarious. And all of that said, this weirdness and jestery sort of appearance has never taken away from my reading experience. It's never not been able to hold its own in some, you know, some really poignant readings, but there is something about the edge of it. Perhaps just my relationship with the artwork, whatever it is. I mean, look at these two. Are they not creepy and fantastic? If this isn't weird but lovable, I don't know what is, because if these tiny demonic kittens turned up, I would adopt them, I would take them on, I would give them all the chicken. I would just love their little demonic souls. It would be a thing. Here's my current devil. I love her. Fantastic. There's a couple that I really fell for, but it's hard choices. But yeah, this is just quintessential, strange, unusual, weird, but lovable. I have nothing else to add. So quote 4 is, "My whole life is a dark room." I feel like I'm not saying these dramatically enough, but you have to go and look them up if you've not seen the movie, or just watch the movie. This is a deck that's photographic or feels like you're looking into a photo. Now, given the nature of the Somnia Tarot, of course it's photographic, as you can see, but one of the reasons that I really felt compelled to pick this one in particular is just based on that quote again itself. My whole life is a dark room. And the Somnia Tarot and this discussion of the liminal plane of dreams, where the nightmares lurk, where the possibilities lurk, where the obscure and bizarre and otherworldly are more likely to occur in our mind's eye, and where also sleep paralysis hides. Things of which I have a big experience of, sleep paralysis being one of them, night terrors, but also just being someone who has always been really, really intrigued by the dream landscape and worked with many a client therapeutically with that, but also myself, and just tried to learn all of the dream methods, because there are so many out there, so many ways to approach dream interpretation. It's so freaking fascinating, and some of them really differ greatly. What I find is generally what the individual leans towards and makes sense to them is the right one. So there isn't really a right or a wrong. But this is, again, for others, what I think is perhaps a little bit eerie. It's definitely strange. But of course, being someone who loves the strange, who loves the slightly weird or the very weird, and just the spectrum of it, this deck has been an absolute delight for me, and was one that was genuinely really hard to put away so that I could spend some time bonding with some other decks. So this one definitely will be out for the latter part of the season, especially once we've moved. I'll be really keen to probably take this all the way into and throughout winter by that stage. But it just gives me darkroom vibes in myself if I was to think about it as an experience as opposed to just a place. And I think that it traverses those two things really wonderfully, and is definitely a bit of the room that I play around with when I work with this deck in particular as well. So again, another fitting one thematically for the selection I've chose, but also for the quote. Next we have Nice Fucking Model. Details. A deck that shines in the details, and the discussion from Robyn was everything from the quality experience to how much perhaps is infused into the artwork. And the really interesting thing for me about the Marigold Tarot is that it hits all of those. So I won't go on too much about the stock experience, but I have to say the bendy, durable, well-cored linen cardstock that is the Marigold Tarot is absolutely delicious, and is probably one of the easiest decks for me to shuffle and causes me the least hand pain, but has just fared so well. Honestly, I don't understand how this deck looks like I haven't used it, because it gets use. I'm sure it will eventually, but it's definitely not showing its age. It's got a bit of a vampire thing going on behind the scenes. And one of the main reasons that the Marigold Tarot was honestly one of the first for me to think of, aside from the Marielle Tarot, which definitely would have been a good choice as well, but I feel like that was an obvious choice. And what I wanted to say about the Marigold Tarot is that there is very specific choices in the plants, in the armour and weaponry and clothing, it's not just the way that the hands are pointing or the way that they're shaped. Everything has been chosen really specifically to be a part of the meaning. And whilst it might not all be discussed in like a huge depth, if you have the book, whether it's the PDF or the hardback, it actually gives you some of that information at the top. And I just feel like that it just adds a lot of value to what you're seeing, especially in a deck that might otherwise appear like it's not offering the same kind of detailing or scene as some other decks, because clearly this is very, very pippish. So here it specifies the Olander and also the, I want to say card dagger, but I'm not sure that I'm doing that justice, and it specifies the type of Olander that we're seeing as well. And then it brings that into the discussion of the card. And I think, like I said, that it would be easy to look at this deck and just assume from the outlook that it's lots of pretty skulls and florals, and that they're there for the aesthetic, and they're there to obviously identify how many cups, or maybe a bit of an infusion about whether the card sits in more of an uplifting or a challenging light. But actually there's more to it, and I feel like that's just one of those things that it could be missed, it could be taken for granted, and it's a really interesting layering in that I have enjoyed reading about, especially because culturally I'm not familiar with some of these items, whether it is clothing, whether it is, like I said, the weaponry or other items. And also my plant knowledge isn't the best. I'm great with some of my local plants, but that's about it. So I feel like the Marigold Tarot is all in the details, and it's just about being willing to sit and look, and also to spend a little time just discovering, like I said, the brief amount of information that the book offers, because it just adds that little kick and finishes the whole experience of this deck off so much, which has become an absolute favourite in my practice as well. So very much this one bringing it on the details. And if you want to see aesthetic details, look at the gold on the box. So shiny. Next we have, I don't think we survived that crash, which is a deck that brings the harsh truths into light. This one probably is the least Halloweeny, ooky spooky deck that I've got, but and is probably one that other people would choose as well, definitely. But the Reclaim Oracle is a great one for harsh truths, and necessary and gentle. It does all of them. I don't think it just does the one. But I think that the thing is about really sitting with our emotions and the sheer spectrum that exists within them, which this deck does beautifully with its 90 cards, is that it confronts us to be present with them. And there are a hell of a lot of emotions, for whatever reason, that we feel are good or bad or strange, are unfamiliar, that we try and create space from, that we suppress, that we struggle to enjoy or trust. And so that in itself makes this deck kind of, like I said, not harsh but confronting. I think that's it's confronting with the entire spectrum as best it can of human emotion and the complexities of that, especially when we have those which feel like they are at opposite ends of the spectrum, or that contradict each other, and we don't know how to make space for both of them. This is a deck that it feels like it offers quite a lot in my career as well, and not just my tarot practice. I suppose I do have a tarot business, but in terms of sort of what I've been doing with my life the whole rest of the time, it really feels like it speaks to that. It doesn't have that overlay of the tarot, which makes it very sort of versatile for people who perhaps might feel that that's taboo, but just see this as a kind of an art and emotive deck. It's very versatile in that way, and I really, really enjoy that. And have you ever just had like a real wave of emotion? And it does, I do not think we survived that crash. Like, I need to deal with this, do something with it, because it has taken me out. And sometimes it can be the good emotions. Like, I think that's the important thing for me, is we put things on a plane of this is good and this is bad, and that's not really how any of these things exist beyond the way that we frame and experience them. So yeah, I feel like the Reclaim is probably very well known now for being a confronting one that brings the hard truths out, that encourages us to sit with the things that perhaps we're not sure or don't want to, and yet we're sitting down in practice trying to create space to do so. Definitely my We Didn't Survive This crash deck. Just quickly before I skid it off, I feel like these beings in this deck, they kind of fit thematically with what I've been going for. And that's something I really like about them. I will add that. If they had looked too human, which, okay, some of them do look very human, but for the most part, and the artistic license and styling with that, it's very appealing to me, and it doesn't distract me from what I want to do with this as well. So I just thought I would add that. And finally, last but not least, out of Robyn's selection was, and you let Beetlejuice out and you didn't put him back. And so this was a deck that can get a little out of pocket. And Robyn gave many examples of that. And I have chosen Fallen Angels, which is another deliciously glossy one. Sorry, folks. So it's behaving. I was literally just talking to a couple of friends about this deck the other day, because when I say it gets out of pocket, I literally mean it. This is one of 2 decks in my collection that seems to manage to hide itself in plain sight. If I haven't used this deck for a longer time, one of my experiences of it is that it seems to be sharper as well. And whilst it has a lot of what I feel people would find confronting in terms of keywords, especially like danger, which is in there multiple times, as I've told people before, it's actually quite soft with me for the most part. It's quite a gentle confrontation, if anything, which has been a really interesting development of the relationship with this deck and the spirit of it and stuff over time. And obviously an extension of how I approach these beings within the practice. So I will add that. It's sort of an expansion on a whole thing for me. But honestly, when I can't find this deck because I haven't used it for a while, and then there's this whole thing, and its frankness definitely gets edgier. It's really, really funny. I'm okay if you think that sounds nuts, because it does. And yet, it is very much my experience with this deck. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the deck, who cares? It feels very, very fitting for the letting Beetlejuice out and Beetlejuice getting very out of pocket. Also, because Robyn had said about other quotes, one of the quotes that this same deck reminded me of actually was, "These aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules." I feel like that is another really great way to just summarize my experience with this deck. And it doesn't have any rules. It has multiple repetitions of several keywords, and then others that are only in it once. It completely just goes off on its own way in readings. It very much feels like a dominant presence in my readings, even though I don't often find that as much with oracles as I do with tarot. It's just a whole interesting experience. And again, you have seen one of my favorites, which I know you've probably heard me say at least for half of these decks. Definitely not all of them, but it is one of those ones where I actually would probably consider a backup. But yeah, freaking love this deck. I feel like I've been quite concise with this particular tag. So just to honour the invitation from Robyn to add another quote and a deck, although this is so on the nose, it's unreal. But given that I want this to also be like a seasonal deck selection-ish kind of video, which is wonderful that the few things can mash up, I was looking at quotes and thinking about them and refreshing my memory. And I really like, if you are real ghosts, you guys better get another routine, because those sheets, they don't work. And what better deck for the season, for the quote, than the Halloween Tarot with the very playful ghosties in their sheets. Because we know that this is Halloween kitsch. This is Halloween childhood, at least for me. This is Halloween before it got too serious for itself, before there was a lot more money thrown at it. This is dressing up when you stuffed something into a long sock or into a pair of stockings to make a cat's tail for yourself. You know, your family made your outfits. You had a sheet to be a ghost. You weren't scary, but you were cute, and you probably didn't look very finished around the edges. This is the quintessential cutesy wander through Halloween trick-or-treating vibe that I just absolutely love and gives me just a great deal of nostalgia. So I figured that I would add it in just for funsies really quickly. You've got the cute bats, you've got the pumpkins, you've got the ghosts, and the, I want to say imps, but let's check what they call them. Ah, they are imps. And then if you wanted anything more cute, you get to follow the black cat throughout the whole entire deck. I have no doubt that you are going to see this tarot again and again and again and again in the coming season for very good reason. It's enjoyable, it's a trustworthy Rider-Waite-Smith, it does it well. It's got all of those really just apt Halloween colours as well, that purple that clashes with the orange, you know, it's just a good time and still feels like a very stable reader. It is one that I read with all year through, but of course 'tis the season. So I will end it there and thank Robyn for tagging mine, Logan and Julie's video and alerting me to this very fun tag. This creation was good fun. I am looking forward to having some time with Beetlejuice in the coming weeks as well, because, you know, like I said, 'tis the season. I hope that the rest of you join in on this, because I would love to see some more. I'm sure that I will think of other decks I could have chosen, but like I say, I really went for some of my faves and some of my really seasonally fitting ones, especially for moving into October. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, and I'll see you all again at some time soon-ish, but when that will be, I do not know. Bye.